Hello, Soberinos, and welcome to this week's Friday Fix. Today I'm answering the question, or I'm partly answering the question, why is it so challenging to stay stopped when we first stop drinking? I've got some notes here which I will keep glancing at occasionally just because there's a couple of really important points here that I want to make sure I include. So the first thing to say about why it's so challenging is that for a long, long time, probably for many years, and I'll use the pronoun we, because if you're watching this probably applies to you as well as to me. We have developed the unconscious part of our minds, the part that we're unaware of, the part that does things on automatic. That unconscious part of us is the part that's responsible for most of our behaviours, most of our thoughts, most of our actions, most of our responses, reactions and feelings. It's the unconscious part of us that's driving us. And for many, many years, we have developed a pattern of behaviour that involves resorting to alcohol at every opportunity. Whether we're sad, whether we're feeling hopeless, helpless, whether we're feeling depressed, whether we're stressed, whether we want to escape what's going on in our heads, whether we want to escape uncomfortable feelings or emotions, whether we want to celebrate, whether we want to reward ourselves, whether the sun is shining and people are outside and they're enjoying themselves and we can hear glasses clinking, whether the weather is bad and miserable, whatever the reason, whatever the prompt, whatever the trigger, we will have developed a pattern, a routine, a habit of reacting to all of those prompts and triggers by resorting to alcohol. And because we've repeated that behaviour for years and years and years, it's become an automated pattern of behaviour. It's become an automatic habit. In other words, it's the unconscious part of our minds that's driving that behaviour. And when we first stop drinking, it's often a very conscious thought. We are consciously saying to ourselves, I don't want to drink anymore. I want to stop drinking. I need to stop drinking, or even I should stop drinking, or I must stop drinking. And we tell ourselves consciously of all the reasons why we want to stop drinking and we want to stay sober. We no longer want to make our lives miserable by drinking alcohol. And we recognize consciously that alcohol is making our lives miserable, that it's no longer sustainable, that it's either putting us physically at risk or mentally at risk or both. And so we want to stop doing. And that's all at a kind of conscious level, at the forefront of our minds. However, because the conscious part of our brain, because the unconscious part of our brains is responsible for 90% plus of our actions, our behaviours, our responses, our thoughts, if we are only consciously thinking thinking about and wanting to stop drinking, if we are not getting that 90% plus unconscious part of us on board, it becomes a real challenge, a real struggle to stay stopped when we do stop drinking. So we need to find ways of getting the unconscious part of our minds on board so that it makes life easier for us, so that we can stay stopped, so that we can stay sober much more easily. If we don't, we run the risk of self-sabotaging, and the unconscious part of our minds, when things get tough, when things get challenging, when things become a bit of a struggle, if we're not careful, that unconscious part of us can just revert back into automatic patterns of behaviour while we're kind of almost unaware of what we're doing. Before we know it, we can find ourselves resorting back to drinking again. because we haven't gone to the effort of getting the unconscious parts of our mind on board. So the next question is, how can we make it easier on ourselves to stay sober? And the answer is we get that unconscious part of us on board. And one of the ways that we do that is to keep our motivation levels topped up really high. And we need to put conscious effort and energy into this so that the unconscious part of us can stay on board really easily. So we need to consciously put effort into keeping our motivation levels topped up high so that it becomes easier to stay sober. And I'm going to give you 2 little ways of doing this. One way of keeping your motivation levels for staying sober topped up high is to keep fresh all of the reasons why you're doing this. All of the reasons why alcohol was making your life miserable, all of the things you want to move away from, the pain and the misery that you want to move away from, but also the good things that living your life sober is going to bring you. You want to keep all of the reasons why you want to live your life sober fresh in your mind, and you want to keep reminding yourselves of all of those reasons why you're doing this. Because if you don't do that, sometimes what can happen is people will resort to drinking alcohol again as almost to give themselves a reminder of why they don't want to do that anymore. And that was certainly true for me. I can remember countless occasions where I resorted back to drinking again. And what happened was I got into a binge session, and I would binge for a week, a month, however long. And when I came out the other side of that freshness of that memory of the hangovers, the shame, the guilt, the poor mental health, the behaviour, all of those reasons why I wanted to stop drinking would be fresh, because I'd reminded myself by drinking again of all of the reasons why I didn't want to drink. It's much healthier if you can remind yourself by not drinking. So keep reminding yourself of all of the reasons why you want to do this so that it stays fresh in your head and you don't have to resort to drinking again to remind yourself why you don't want to do it. The second thing you can do, so keep all of the reasons why you want to do this fresh in your head. Keep reminding yourself of all of those reasons. And the second way of keeping your motivation levels topped up high is to paint the right kind of picture of what your life sober is going to be bringing you. All of the positives that your life sober is going to bring you. And if you can paint a picture of your wonderful new sober life, and you can really bring it to life, breathe life into it by using your senses. What are you going to see when you're living this amazing, sober, successful life? What are you going to hear when you're living your life successfully sober? What are you going to feel? What kind of sensations might you be noticing in your body and in your mind, on your skin? What kind of things, what kind of emotions might you feel when you're living your life successfully sober? So everything you're going to see, everything you're going to hear, everything that you are going to feel, everything that you are going to smell and that you are going to taste when you're living your life successfully sober. And the more life you can breathe into this really positive picture that you're painting of your successful sober lifestyle, the more it will draw you in, the more inviting it will become, the more compelling it will become. And the more compelling this picture is of your wonderful, fresh, exciting, liberating and joyful life sober, the more your unconscious mind will get on board, and the more likely you will be to feel motivated by it and to stick to it even when the going gets tough, because the going will get tough sometimes. Okay, so those are my 2 tips for keeping your motivation levels topped up high. Keep all your reasons for doing this fresh and paint the right picture of what it's going to be to live your life sober. I will look forward to catching up with you in tomorrow's Saturday share. But in the meantime, let's go get sober together. Bye for now.